When evaluating the Wasatch Front housing market in mid-2026, relying on a broad regional headline can easily lead to costly strategic mistakes. If you monitor the 5-county regional data, you'll see a generalized deceleration. Across Salt Lake County, single-family home prices have adjusted downward to a median of $620,000. And if an observer stops there, they might assume that every other municipality in the valley is experiencing a uniform price correction. However, looking strictly at the localized data for Sandy City reveals an entirely different economic landscape. Sandy continues to operate as an insulated premium real estate hub. Despite a broader macro slowdown, Sandy's single-family median sales price jumped a substantial 8.3% year over year, climbing to $715,000. That's up from $660,000 in June of last year. This creates a massive $95,000 price gap between a median home in Sandy versus a median home in the rest of the county. This data underscores a critical reality. While regional buyers are finding lower price point entry elsewhere, Sandy's core asset value is steadily appreciating. Waiting on the sidelines for a sweeping market crash in Sandy has historically cost buyers roughly $55,000 in lost equity over the last 12 months alone. The most impactful metric shifting the negotiation landscape for local families is the sudden expansion of available choices. Active single-family inventory in Sandy has surged by 23% year over year, rising from 163 active listings last June to over 200 available homes today. And for the first time in years, the inventory crunch is easing, pushing our overall inventory velocity up to a healthier 3.9 months of supply. It is vital to understand why this inventory is accumulating. And if you look at the fresh influx of properties, new listings are practically flat, dropping less than 1% from 111 last year to 117 this past month. This proves that the market isn't being flooded by panicking sellers or forced liquidations. Instead, inventory is stacking up because buyers are moving more deliberately, forcing properties to sit on the market longer. For a buyer, this distinction is everything. It means the frantic, blind bidding wars that characterized the last few years have dissipated. You finally have the luxury of options, the ability to view multiple properties, and the time required to build a rational, calculated offer. This cooling pace is explicitly reflected in the market velocity. Single-family days on market in Sandy rose by 30% over last year, moving from a rapid 26 days up to 34 days currently. Crossing that 1-month threshold alters seller psychology completely. When a home sits empty past 3 or 4 weeks, carrying costs pile up and anxiety sets in. This brings us to a key metric that many commentators misunderstand. The percent of an original list price received, which currently sits at 97.8%. And while a seller might look at that number and feel secure, a forensic look at the math reveals this is a substantial advantage for the buyer. A 97.8% average means that right out of the gate, sellers are taking an average discount of 2.2% straight off their asking price. On a standard $700,000 single-family home, that 2.2% gap represents over $15,000 in immediate negotiating leverage. Buyers aren't just paying sticker price anymore. They are successfully clawing money back from the seller. As your coach, this is where we win. We can take that $15,000 in seller concessions and, instead of a simple price reduction, deploy it into a seller-funded 2-1 mortgage rate buydown. That effectively drops a 6.5% interest rate down into the 4s and 5s for the first 2 years, saving you hundreds of dollars a month on your monthly mortgage payment, while also protecting your financial downside. Navigating a market with a 3.9 month of supply requires a distinct, non-generic game plan depending on which side of the transaction you occupy. If you are a seller in Sandy, you must acknowledge that you no longer dictate all the terms. With 201 competing properties on the market, buyers will simply bypass homes that are poorly staged, smell like pets, or are priced based on greed rather than comparable data. If you don't adjust your pricing model to reflect the 34-day reality, your property will sit, grow stagnant, and you will ultimately give up far more than that 2.2% average discount just to get the buyer through the door. And if you are a buyer, your play is to aggressively exploit this window of leverage. The underlying price floor of Sandy is still trending upward year over year. Waiting for prices to plummet while inventory climbs is a flawed strategy because Sandy's core desirability keeps it insulated. The winning blueprint right now is to step into the market. While you have 201 choices, single out a property that has crossed the 34-day mark and use the 97.8% list price trend to negotiate a massive seller-paid concession package. Clear communication and line-by-line math are how we secure your wealth. Reach out to me directly by texting strategy to this number to build your custom data-driven transaction map.